I now will welcome on the floor to Mr António Guterres to present his vision statement and give us some additional remarks. António.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. First of all, allow me a few remarks in relation to the paper I have presented. And first, why am I here as a candidate? I believe I'm an extremely privileged man. God has given me the opportunity to access a wide range of opportunities difficult to match, but that creates an obligation for public service. After 28 years of political engagement in my own country, motivated by what I felt as a student volunteer, the shock I felt as a student volunteer in the slums of Lisbon, I had the chance to serve the most vulnerable of the vulnerable as High Commissioner for Refugees. An extraordinary privilege, but a terrible frustration, because there was no humanitarian solution for their plight. The solution, as it was the case in relation to the misery in the slums of Lisbon, is always political. But the best place to address the root cause of human suffering is at the center of the UN system, and that's why I am a candidate for Secretary General. And that brings me to the centrality of prevention. We all say that the international community spends more time and resources managing crises than preventing them. TV cameras are not there where a crisis is avoided. And so it's natural that it is difficult for governments and for international organizations to have prevention as a priority. But I believe prevention must be not only a priority, but the priority of everything we do. And that, of course, demands a huge cultural change and a true revolution in global advocacy. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, the root causes of conflict and security, poverty, inequalities, or even environmental desecration, systematic violations of human rights are increasingly interlinked. The root causes of conflict become increasingly interlinked, and that is the reason that there is a core importance attached to prevention and a comprehensive vision. We need to understand the global trends of today's world and find strategies and policies which together and at the same time can act in line with the United Nations 3 pillars.
Mr. President, it is here, however, that historic agreements on the 2013 agenda and the objectives of the Sustainable Development Goals and climate change have created a unique opportunity. And it falls to the Secretary General to mobilize the entire United Nations system in cooperation with other regional and international organizations, civil society, and the private sector to support the states, which are the leaders of this process, with full support which ensures the success of the implementation of the agenda and at the same time inform the reform of the United Nations development system. I think that the relative balance between the various bodies of the United Nations should not be changed, but we do have to promote convergence and strategic consistency with the entire system.
The dots, and no one better than the UN to do so, based on its universality and its wide range of expertise. To tame climate change and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals is also a key prevention tool in relation to peace, security, and human rights. But let's be clear, if there is something in which the international community is failing, is in conflict prevention and resolution, and in safeguarding global security against terrorism. And that is why I believe we need a surge in diplomacy for peace. Leadership of member states is essential, as we have seen recently in the Syrian crisis, that was with an initiative that was led by the United States and the Russian Federation. But as power relations are becoming less clear, leadership is becoming also a more complex concept, requiring a collective approach. And that is where I see a role for the good offices of the Secretary General, acting with humility, without arrogance, without giving lessons to anybody, but working as a convener, as a facilitator, as a catalyst, and behaving like an honest broker, a bridge builder, and a messenger for peace. And the review of peacekeeping, peace building, and the Women, Peace and Security Resolution, even if this cannot be seen as a package, also create a unique opportunity to develop a comprehensive, a modern, and an effective operational peace architecture encompassing from prevention and conflict resolution to peacekeeping, peace building, and long-term development, what can be called the peace continuum that requires an holistic, not a fragmented approach, and that must have at its center the support to capacity and institutional building of states. Strengthening state capacity, institutions and societies is not only essential in preventing crises and in promoting development, it is also the best foundation for human rights to be protected and enjoyed, and for member states to respect their human rights obligations without discrimination. And it is the role of the Secretary General to mainstream human rights across the whole of the UN system, namely through the Human Rights Upfront initiative. But leading by example, the Secretary General must also stand for the reputation of the UN and of its staff, imposing the highest possible levels of demand in relation to ethical standards to everyone working under the UN. And human rights, both civil and political rights, and economic, social and cultural rights, must be seen as a common value by us all, and must be promoted as such, with credibility, with objectivity, and in an unbiased way, without linking it to any other political objectives. Allow me a few words on a central issue for us all, gender. The UN must be at the forefront of the efforts of the international community for gender equality. And let's be honest, it was not always exactly the case. But for that we need three principles of action. First, to progressively move from perceiving women and girls as only a subject of protection to fully committing to the empowerment of women and girls at all levels. Second, from an isolated focus on women and girls to gender mainstreaming across all relevant policies and operations. And third, to understand that the name for gender equality in staff management in the UN is parity. And that is why, if elected in the early months of my mandate and after the necessary consultations, I will present a roadmap for parity at all levels, with clear benchmarks and timeframes, and giving priority to the selection of senior staff. I believe that from now on, the Secretary General must respect parity in the appointments of the Secretary General in relation to the members of the Chief Executive Board and the Senior Management Group, and that a shift is necessary in relation to the selection of special representatives and envoys, where, let's be clear, we have been moving backwards in recent times. And the same commitment is necessary to ensure regional equilibrium in the selection of senior staff. Allow me a few words on coordination and reform. We need a less process-oriented coordination and a more results-focused, delivery-oriented coordination. And coordination is about accountability, transparency, and leadership. But to have a collective responsibility in the UN, we need three levels of accountability. Global system-wide accountability, accountability of each organization in relation to its mandate, and accountability of each organization in relation to how it contributes to the global performance of the system. We need a culture of evaluation, independent and real-time evaluation with full transparency. And we need to understand that our working methods, our rules and procedures are too complex, too cumbersome, too headquarters-oriented. And my experience, UNHCR, shows that working together with member states, we can go a long way in simplifying with a win-win reform strategy, making the UN more effective and cost-effective, more nimble, more flexible, more decentralized, and more field-oriented. Excellencies, we live in dangerous times. We need to combine all our efforts, not only to promote peace, not only to solve conflicts, but also to exercise our collective responsibility based on our legal right and our moral duty to eradicate terrorism in all its forms and in all its manifestations. And we need to be able to unite around our values, our universal values, recognized by the Charter and by all religions in the world, to confront radicalization, intolerance, and violent extremism. We must be proud of the UN diversity, because our diversity is the best way to assert our common humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, António Guterres.